Okay, well, cheers, Chris, for that lecture. It's very interesting about the work of UNESCO. It's nice to hear all the important work you're doing. Have you been impressed by what you've seen so far in the Isle of Man?
I certainly have, yes, and I'm very excited at the prospect of seeing Manx used in education. But yeah, the fact that there are so many enthusiastic people who are prepared to come and hear about Manx compared with other languages in different situations of endangerment in the world, is very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we've known corresponded for a while, but I suppose in particular, you got to know each other a bit better after the UNESCO sort of declaring Manx to be extinct, as it were. But I think that's maybe, well, I think as we both talking today, that's not a fair way of looking at the present situation of Manx in the Isle of Man, is it?
No. It was a question of different definitions of extinct. The one that had been used in the past was that the last native speaker had died. But now we use a more realistic, I'd like to think, definition, which wouldn't apply to Manx, that nobody speaks or remembers it, which is clearly not the case, as I see and hear on this island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good. And what about, I'm quite interested in your work with, you mentioned one of the other, a small minority language in Latvia, Livonian, which you're closely involved with, and you think that there's some parallels, do you think, between the situation there, the language situation there and in the Isle of Man?
Yes, Livonian is in a way a bit less fortunate than Manx in its recent history, although it might have looked a bit more optimistic, say, 70 or 80 years ago. Livonian is spoken on the west coast of Latvia by a fishing community, so in a way it's fishing communities in both countries that have kept the language alive. They were dispersed by the Soviets when it became strategic military territory, their coastal strip in Latvia. And so it was political reasons that killed off the language, but it wasn't a complete death. People were dispersed to live in other towns in Latvia. Some emigrated out of the country completely. And so the important thing was that there wasn't a community of speakers anymore. Now, here on the Isle of Man, you have that important difference, that you do have a community of potential speakers and real speakers developing. And so the situation isn't so diffuse. The language had another thing in common in that it was so different from its neighbours. Well, when I say its neighbour, well, its encroaching neighbour, and I mean, of course, English in the case of Manx, and I mean Latvian and ultimately Russian as well, because at the time of the death knell for Livonian, it was Russian influence rather than Latvian influence that was killing it off. Well, Russian political decisions, basically, Soviet political decisions, which is not similar to the situation with the Isle of Man.
Good, good. Well, I know you'll be over there in a little while, and you said that there might be some lessons and you can take with you from the Isle of Man to there. And also, I think it's good that we get people like yourself over to, well, find out a little bit about Manx, but also then can spread the word, you know, to other language communities about what's going on in the Isle of Man, because I'd still like to think it's a success story about the revival of interest and enthusiasm regards Manx. And a lot of minority languages, you know, they sort of need success stories to hang on to in some shape or form.
Well, you're very right. And I'm looking at it with from two angles, really, not just the UNESCO angle, but also from the Foundation for Endangered Languages angle, because Manx is a success story compared with a lot of languages that we've contributed to research into through our foundation. And I feel more optimistic about Manx than a lot of languages that have had academic research done on them and maybe materials prepared in them. But you can't always be sure unless there's a continuous willingness on the part of a body of speakers to keep a language going. You can't, unless you've got the proof that that exists, you can't be sure that the future for a language is secure.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks for sharing the experience of the Livonian and UNESCO with us today, and hopefully to see you back in the Isle of Man in a few more years to even see even a even greater increase in interest in support for the language.
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be, yeah.
Good reminder. Thank you.
Thank you.